Just 2 weeks before he was set to testify before Congress, the president's former fixer, Michael Cohen, says the whole thing is off, at least for now. The man who was set to tell lawmakers and really the public what life was like as Trump's former attorney. He's now pulling the plug due to concerns about his family's safety. In a statement we now have from Lanny Davis, this is Michael Cohen's attorney, they write, in part, due to ongoing threats against his family from President Trump and Mr. Giuliani as recently as this weekend, Mr. Cohen's appearance will be postponed to a later date. So let's start with what we know. I've got Manu Raju and Dana Bash up here with me. So Manu, let me just start with you. What sort of threats? Obviously, we've seen some of them both on Twitter and on TV.
Yeah, and this came as a major surprise for Democrats and Republicans. They had been in discussions with Cohen's representatives, with the special counsel's office about this testimony going forward, with no expectation that this was going to be delayed in light of these concerns, and what Michael Cohen's representatives are saying, threats to Michael Cohen's family in light of the president raising questions about Michael Cohen's father-in-law, Rudy Giuliani, doing the same thing. And remarkable that Michael Cohen saying that because of the president's statements, his family's security is an issue here and reason why he is scrapping this high-profile hearing that was scheduled for February 7th. Now, yesterday, Elijah Cummings, who's the top Democrat, who's the chairman of this committee, I had asked him about concerns that Republicans had raised that this testimony would not be able to detail much about what was going on because of ongoing investigations. But Elijah Cummings made no mention to me that this could be postponed. In fact, he told me last night that they were still in discussions with Mueller's office about exactly what Michael Cohen could tell them in an open session. And Adam Schiff this morning also made clear that he wanted Michael Cohen to come before his committee, the House Intelligence Committee, to talk about everything that pertains to the Russia investigation, the Trump Tower Moscow projects, the president's push for that and discussions about that when he was a candidate. He said he was prepared to subpoena Michael Cohen if he did not agree to come voluntarily. So this statement, Brooke, a huge surprise ahead of a very high-profile hearing. The question is, what do they do next? They're not going to have time before he goes to jail here in March.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So as Manu points out, not only is he not testifying in front of additional committees, he's not going to be testifying, according to the statement from Lanny Davis, on February 7th. And, you know, I know you've talked so much to Rudy Giuliani. Part of this is because of the incoming from Rudy Giuliani, in addition to President Trump, according to Lanny Davis in this statement. And we have that sources say that these threats are not only aimed at Michael Cohen, but also, as we've seen on TV, his father-in-law and his wife.
And I just pulled up a transcript from what Giuliani said to Jake Tapper just a few days ago on State of the Union.
And guys,
on
as we talk to the control room, let me know if we have the soundbite queued up, because we'd love to play it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
In the meantime, the gist is Giuliani brought up unsolicited the notion that he is, his father-in-law is Ukrainian. And Jake rightly said, well, that's not a crime to be Ukrainian.
Right.
And Giuliani's response was, well, he's got millions of dollars. And the reason it's important, Giuliani said, is he may have ties to something called organized crime. And they went back and forth on that. That was not an accident. And I think that combined with a tweet somewhat recently from the president going after Michael Cohen, and then at the end of that tweet saying, watch the father-in-law. That's what this is about for Michael Cohen. It's real. They are concerned about that. And Manu said something at the very end there, which is really important. The window's closing. Michael Cohen's going to jail at the beginning of March. There's about, a month left to play with for the Democrats to convince Cohen that his family is okay and won't be a target, whether it's what kind of target? We don't know whether it's a target with regard to prosecution or a target otherwise. And so if they can't convince him in that window before he goes to jail, Giuliani and Donald Trump can say mission accomplished, because there's no question that's what they were doing here. They were trying to intimidate him, and it worked.
Here's what I want to know, and let me turn to our legal brain, Michael Zeldin. Does this constitute witness tampering?
Well, not necessarily witness tampering. It could be, Brooke, but there is a separate crime of threats, and you can create threats. Rudy Giuliani on television has said, like, when I was a prosecutor, what you said to people, which was an obstruction, was, I'm going to break your bones or whatever. That's actually not true. You can say things like, I hope you will see it my way, or you should be concerned about the well-being of your family. You should take account of these other things. All these things can be evaluated by prosecutors as threats and witness intimidation. So Giuliani's words are going to have to be parsed very carefully by the Justice Department or the local U.S. Attorney's Office to see whether they actually do rise to the level of legal threats. Surely they're political threats, and maybe that's all that it'll turn out to be. But it's unacceptable, really, from somebody who was a former United States attorney and mayor of the United States.
And who would be looking into those threats to officially determine what they constitute?
Well, it could be the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the District of Columbia. It could be the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. I don't know where Giuliani has been when he's made these threats. These threats are made over the wires, meaning the communication devices, so they're interstate. So that covers the federal jurisdiction for these things. So there are lots of different, sort of divisions of the Justice Department that could look at this if they felt that it was legally actionable. And we have to really wait to see the words that you put up to see what he said. But it does not have to be, as he said, Brooke, I'm going to break your leg if you testify. It could well be what he's talking about here.
Sure. It doesn't have to be that overt. Dana, we were just reporting out yesterday. I was talking to Jessica Schneider about this, about how so many people have been waiting, obviously, for this February 7th testimony and what he could say about Trump, about the family, who knows what. And then the news came down that he would actually only be able to talk about a sliver of what we thought. So what then became off limits?
Well, it sounds like up to now, what's off limits is anything that would collide with the Mueller investigation, which is a lot. I mean, you have the Mueller investigation, which encompasses a lot of what you could hear from Michael Cohen, but then also he's under investigation here in New York by the Southern District, presumably with that, or was under investigation, obviously he's going to jail for it, presumably that, since it's done, those issues are things that he could talk about.
What could he have talked about, like taxi medallions?
Well, yeah, I mean, there certainly is, that's certainly rich. I mean, just the whole question of what happened with the payments with regard to the women, the hush money. Presumably that's not off limits. Russia, the Moscow project, things that are currently actively being debated in public and certainly being investigated in private on this Mueller investigation, which is not done, would have been off limits.
Manu mentioned Elijah Cummings, who's now the chairman of House Oversight, who was the committee to whom Cohen was to testify. We were also planning on talking about two of these more progressive congresswomen who have now been named as part of this committee, such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib. Can you just talk about their presence on such a huge committee? Yeah,
I mean, historically, this committee, the Oversight Committee, has been a political platform, a policy platform for members of all stripes in both parties. I mean, Darrell Issa made his name being the chairman of this committee back when the Republicans took over during the Obama years, and so did a lot of other rank and file members. These are people who already have made names on other issues, and this is going to be a giant platform, and would have been, or still could be if they reschedule this date, in particular, because this would be the first time we would see them in action as legislators, and in a very high-profile way. I mean, we obviously saw them on the campaign. We've seen lots and lots of statements, lots of tweets. We know them as sort of cults of personality, particularly AOC, as she's called. This would be, okay, what are you going to do as an actual member of Congress?
Still back on your point, how the window could close.
Yeah, and I'm just, if I may, I just pulled up at the end, and I'm not sure if they're going to grab this in the control room maybe during your show, but the point that Giuliani continued to make with Jake on Sunday is that he said it is his responsibility as somebody who is defending his client, the President of the United States, to point out character flaws with somebody who is going to testify against him. And he said that is what he is doing. So the question is whether or not, as Michael said, he can be, and as you posed, looked at as engaging in witness tampering, or, as Giuliani said, when somebody testifies against your client, you go out, you look at what's wrong with them. Why are they doing it if they're not telling the truth? And Giuliani again said that maybe he shouldn't testify because of his father-in-law, because of repercussions that would happen with his father-in-law. Again, clearly intimidation. He was pretty transparent about intimidating him, but explained why on CNN.